Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Well, I feel as if I've been partying all night. All night long. Hare Krishna. Well, today is not Balaram Purnima, but it is another day. It's another moon day. No, it's not. It's Sunday today. Yesterday, day of the moon. Today, day of the sun. So, we have Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is, where are we? 279, isn't it? 279? Yeah. Narada kahe Vaishnava Tumar Anakichuai Vyada kahe Yari patao Se divya yai. If you like to sing it. Narada kahe Vaishnava Tumara Anakichunai Vyada kahe yari patao se divya yai. Narad kahe Vaishnava Tumara Anakichuai Vyada kahe yari patao se divya yai. Okay. Anyone like to, brave enough to try? Narada kahe, Narad Muni said, Vaishnav, O Vaishnav, Tumar, your, Anna, food, Kichu I, does any come? Vyada kahe. The hunter replied, Yare patao, whoever you send, say, that person, diya, giving something, yai, goes. Translation. Narad Muni then asked the hunter, my dear Vaishnava, do you have some income for your maintenance? The hunter replied, my dear spiritual master, whoever you send gives me something when he comes to see me. Please repeat this very important verse. So relevant to today's Vaishnavas as well as 500 years ago. Narad Muni then asked the hunter, my dear Vaishnav, do you have some income for your maintenance? The hunter replied, my dear spiritual master, whoever you send gives me something when he comes to see me. Purport. This confirms the statement in the Bhagavad Gita 9:22 to the effect that the Lord carries all necessities to his Vaishnava devotee. Narad Muni asked the former hunter how he was being maintained, and he replied that everyone who came to see him brought him something for his maintenance. Krishna, who is situated in everyone's heart, says, I personally carry all necessities to a Vaishnava. Thank God for that. That's not what Prabhupada says. Krishna, I personally carry. He can order anyone to execute this. Everyone is ready to give something to a Vaishnava. And if a Vaishnava is completely engaged in devotional service, he need not be anxious for his maintenance. Hari, Hari, Bol. Oma Gyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalaka Chakshuruminitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave. if you like. All right then. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swam Padantikam. Yeah, good. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. You may want to put that fan a little bit. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So, Narad Muni, in the last verse we heard that Narad Muni is capable of elevating, it says, even a hunter. By your mercy, even a low-born person like this hunter. So someone who's hunting is considered to be low-born. Their job is ahimsa, or their pleasure is ahimsa. No, the pleasure is himsa. Pleasure is giving violence to others, giving pain to others. And of course we've just had the story, so you will know the story, that Narada Muni asked the hunter to, first of all, to make some arrangement to, yeah. This is the morning after the night before. So, so Narada Muni is always uplifting souls, is that better? Yeah. And I would like to say, although the Srimad Bhagavatam is a book about Krishna and his incarnations, it's also a book about Narada Muni, because Narada Muni appears almost in every canto. Please listen as I describe to you how Narada Muni appears and reappears in order to uplift fallen souls. In the first canto, maybe I should ask you, where does he appear? Tara?
He appears to his disciple Vyasadeva.
Yes. And how does he uplift the fallen souls?
He advises Vyasadeva to present the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah, in order to uplift the fallen souls of the age of Kali and give them pure attraction to Sri Krishna. And Bhagavatam is central to bhakti. In the second canto, he inspires sages with his teachings on devotion. In the third canto, what happens? This is a very interesting one.
Speak with Brahma. He speak with Brahma.
Maybe. I'm not quite sure. The prominent one for me is that he tells his story. He tells the story of how he was uplifted by what? The Bhaktivedantas, that's right. His mother was serving the Bhaktivedantas during the Chaturmasya season when the sannyasis did not travel. Again, like most of Vedic culture, sannyasis don't travel not because of it's a special religious ritual, but just it's too wet. Sannyasis tend to be older men. Hare Krishna. Sannyasis tend to be older men. And speaking on behalf of older men, I can tell you, it's not always easy to get around. Sannyasis, we are used to in ISKCON, being whirling, twirling, singing, initiating, flashes of orange that appear in an airport and are gone. And they're in their 30s and 40s and maybe early 50s. Sannyasis, in the Veda tradition, sannyas begins at 50 and goes on until death. And it's the little 10 years or so before death that it gets very difficult to move around. So you may have some sannyasis who really need to be kept out of the rain. This is a Vedic principle. Keep your sannyasis out of the rain and the mud. Because in the mud you get problems with the feet, and they'll catch a cold, and then they catch the flu, Vedic flu, or whatever strain of flu was going around with that, so keep them. So sannyasis used to be in one place. Interestingly enough, when the Buddhists became prominent in India, they looked at the sannyasis and they thought, well, during this time of the Chaturmasya, these Hindu sannyasis are able to preach very nicely. So the Buddhist monks set up what they call guhas, or caves, which is often where the sannyasis would be for 4 months in a cave. So the Buddhists set up the conclave of all the monks in a place called a guha. But they didn't stay there for 4 months, they stayed there for 12 months. And that is how the first Buddhist temples came about. And as a result, they then took over India with their preaching, because people knew where they were. With a sannyasi, you never knew where he was. How can you find a sannyasi? You think it's difficult now to find a sannyasi guru. In the Vedic times, what are you going to do? Phone him? What are you going to do? Internet? Search a list? How are you going to find a sannyasi to be your guru? Sannyasis are always traveling. So because they're always traveling, they don't initiate anyone. This is the contract. Sannyasis do not initiate. So they traveled for a while. Then Buddhism takes over. And then incoming people want to get India free from Buddhism. So they look at this system and they say, okay, from now on, sannyasis can stay 12 months of the year in a city. We've changed the pattern of sannyas. So now sannyasis are accessible. So now sannyas is more about giving initiation and teaching. This is coming in with Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya like that. Excuse me, I tell a lie. Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya, to rid India of Buddhism, he changed the system so that his sannyasis would be in guhas and caves. Then everybody knew where they were. A university would grow up around the sannyasis. You had sannyasis being teachers instead of being traveling preachers. Understand the difference? So then Ramanuja comes along and looks at this and, okay, this is a new pattern of, we want to get rid of Shankara. How are we going to do that? We're going to teach in one place only. So then you have sannyasis initiating, Vaishnava sannyasis initiating. Along comes Madhva and the Madhva Sampradaya like that. And they're really rooted to the spot. You know, sannyasis are there. If you go to Udupi, 8 sannyasis, and you can go around all the ashrams. I was there in February. You go around the town and there's 8 ashrams. Some of them are not very busy, but 8 sannyasis living there. And then they take charge every 2 years. The head sannyasi changes. So the point here is that sannyas went from traveling with its whole bunch of rules to stationary and new rules. The difficult thing is if you try to combine the rules, don't combine the rules. This is where the problems come. Sannyasis have to travel if they want to become detached. And therefore they have to be very, very careful when they're in one place. So Narada Muni is a sannyasi, technically speaking. He travels and he preaches and he's always looking for souls to uplift. Is that okay? I just thought I'd give you a little historical analysis like that. So sometimes people say, my guru is a sannyasi. Because he's a sannyasi, he always travels. Because he's always traveling, I never get to speak to my guru. It's difficult to have a combination of both sannyas, a life being led, which is always traveling, and teacher, which requires you to be in one place. Difficult combo. We try to pull it off, but sometimes it doesn't work. So Narada, he tells his transformation. He says that how just once by their permission, I took the remnants of their prasadam. And Prabhupada, of course, is very insistent that prasadam is not food. My daughter Janavi, when she was about 8 years old, we were traveling on a motorway, and there was a big billboard that said, "Next junction, food." And she turned to me and said, "Daddy, what's food?" Because food was a word that we never used in the house. We never used the word food. It was always prasadam. So this was a new word for her. She was 8. What's food? Of course, as devotees we say, have you offered the prasadam? Well, of course, this is a bit of a brain teaser because you don't offer prasadam, you offer naivedyam. You buy bhoga, you create naivedya and offer it, and then you receive prasadam. But shorthand we say, have you offered the prasadam? Krishna's eating prasadam. Whose prasadam does Krishna eat? Your prasadam? What are you doing? So the language has to fit what we do. Anyway, so once, by their permission, I took the remnants of their prasadam. My first prasadam from Srila Prabhupada was kind of special. You always remember it. So his disciple Upendra came out of his room, and he came out with Prabhupada's silver cup. Prabhupada drank out of a silver cup. So he said, "Hey, do you want some of Srila Prabhupada's Maha Prasadam?" "Oh, yes, please." He said, "Okay." And he poured from Srila Prabhupada's silver cup into my mouth. And I said, "Oh, what's this?" He said, "Oh, it's something you don't get in England. It's called 7-Up." He said, Prabhupada takes it sometimes to settle his stomach. So I didn't know. So it was mystical. It was like a mystical, transcendental experience. 7-Up. So if someone comes to me and says, "Prabhu, is 7-Up bona fide?" I go, "Oh, yes." So where else? So Prabhupada extols prasadam, even a bit of prasadam. What's that story with Jagannath Prasadam? Lord Shiva is manically dancing, right? Lord Shiva is manically dancing. And Parvati comes to him and says, "What is it, my Lord? What have you received?" Oh, I forget the story. But someone has given him just a little portion of prasadam. Is it Narada Muni?
Yes.
Narada Muni comes to Shiva? Is that it? And Shiva has none left, but he has some under his fingernail. Just a little bit of prasadam stuck under one fingernail. Is that it?
Narada Muni got prasadam from Lakshmi Devi.
Narada Muni got prasadam from Lakshmi Devi.
Krishna's prasadam from Lakshmi Devi.
Ah.
Although she wasn't supposed to give it. And then he was in ecstasy.
Ah.
And Shiva, and she was going, "Give me some of the Mahas." There's none left. And then he found a little portion of it.
Ah, okay.
Devi didn't get any. Shiva's wife didn't get any.
So then, isn't that the arrangement that Devi is always fed the prasadam first? So from Jagannath in Puri, the prasadam goes to Devi, the wife of Lord Shiva, who's also inside the compound. So the Maha plate will go from Jagannath to Devi, Parvati Devi, who in this place is called Bimala. So then when the prasad is taken from Bimala, it becomes Bimala Prasad, which of course is the name of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Prabhupada, when they asked him, as I said yesterday, when they asked him what his unique contribution was, he said, well, to prasadam, no one's done prasadam. We always pronounce prasadam the way Prabhupada pronounced it, with the Bengali sh. In fact, every S we pronounce as sh. Nrsingadev, isn't it? Nrsingadev, prasadam. Okay. Whereas elsewhere in India, it's Narasimha or Narasimha or prasad. Sometimes the Indians come, they say, "Do you have any prasad?" And the devotee will correct them, saying, "No, not prasad, prasadam. Different varieties of spelling. So Prabhupada said it was a unique contribution, prasad. And this story teaches us that anyone can attain bhakti. And this is very important, not just for our own theological understanding, but for the bhakti movements that came later on. There are many bhakti movements. Ramanujacharya had a bhakti movement which challenged the caste system. Then one disciple of Madhvacharya, his name was Vyasatirtha. He appears in our Sampradaya. Vyasatirtha had a Sankirtan movement, an outdoor Sankirtan movement. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people followed before the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it uplifted you would say, the non-Brahminical classes. Traditionally, non-Brahminical classes don't get involved with rituals. They're the preserve of the Brahmins, but Panchatric ritual is open to any class of person. So these bhakti movements made great use of this. And of course the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. So anyone can attain bhakti. In the fourth canto, what happens? This is quite exciting. Fourth canto, Narada Muni. Who's he uplifting? Someone other than Tara. Because he's a Bhagavatam scholar. What happens in the fourth canto? Who tries to sit on whose lap? Dhruva, yes, he tries to sit on the lap. His mother is Suniti, and he sees Suruchi, the official wife of the king, or the higher class wife of the king. Her boy is sitting on the lap, and of course, little Dhruva, he wants to sit on the other lap. The king's got two knees, why shouldn't I sit on it? And the mother says no. He comes home, he says, Mother, why is this happening? She says, well, you will never inherit the kingdom. Well, Suruchi says it actually, you'll never inherit the kingdom. You're not really a prince, you're nothing. And of course, Dhruva is a true Kshatriya. He hates this, even at that young age. So he goes home. His mother says, if you want to achieve something, go to the forest. In the forest, Narada Muni meets his guru. Now, there's a saying in India, of course, that they like, that when you're looking for the guru appears. Have you heard that one? All the yoga teachers will tell you that. Okay. When I looked for a guru, that's my yoga teacher voice. When I looked for a guru, the guru appeared, and I met Guruji. Well, the Guruji is not a bus, it comes along. I was looking for the number 42 tram into the city, and along came the tram, and I thought, that's the right tram to get on. Well, maybe it's not the right tram to get on. Maybe it'll take you to one of the suburbs. You have to be careful. So just because you want a guru, the first guru to come along may not be your Guruji. In fact, it's most likely that he's not. So Dhruva, he was in the middle of the forest, and Narada Muni came to him. And in fact, Narada Muni was Guruji. And in fact, this was a pure desire from Dhruva to attain the highest thing. So what mantra does Narada Muni give him? That's a secret mantra. How can you speak it out loud? Yes, he gives him the mantra. Yes. Just kidding. And he chants this mantra for a short time, but with such intensity that he achieves all desires and the Lord appears to him. So what's going on here? We're learning how bhakti can transform someone, even though someone has the wrong initial desire. He didn't want pure devotion, and he confesses as much. Is it Hari Bhakti Sudadaya or Harivamsa? Where Dhruva says, I came looking for broken glass, but you gave me a most precious gem. I always forget. So the Lord disappeared, He appeared to him and he disappeared. And that's difficult. That's difficult. To have a realization of God, that God himself should come in front of you. And only a short while, and then disappears and you never see him again. What a tragedy. But Dhruva, later on, he needs some help from his grandfather. Do you remember what happened? Which canto is that in? 7? Is it 7? Dhruva is attacked. Dhruva's brother is killed by some Tibetans. So Dhruva takes his army. He's king now. He's not a boy anymore. He did achieve everything. And despite coming to bhakti. And he goes north to Tibet and he fights these yakshas. And they're sending all kinds of mystical weapons towards him. There's a great storm, then there's a tsunami, then it starts to rain. And it starts to rain, not water, but hands. Can you imagine? It starts raining in Zurich, and hands are falling from the sky. Then feet. And then it starts raining blood. And then all kinds of obnoxious substances. And then comes all kinds of temptations. So Dhruva, he stands firm in the face of this, and he keeps fighting. And all these illusions just pass through him. And it's kind of like the Buddha, when the Buddha's in meditation, and he has different temptations. Or when a person does Kundalini yoga, tantric yoga, and he has to sit in meditation, and all these temptations will come to him as the Kundalini is raised up the spine. For each point in the spine, there's a different temptation. So he'll get beautiful women, beautiful scenes played out in front of him. He'll get fear. He'll get anxiety, fear of death, anxiety, loss of, I will never, the greatest fear for a spiritualist, I'll never make it on this path. Okay, great fear. I'll never make it before I die, or, you could stop here for a while and enjoy the temptations of the flesh, or just food. Maybe the temptation is just a banquet, a nice table full of jalebis. Wasn't it a wonderful feast yesterday? But how great the temptation was just before the feast. Now imagine you're sitting and you're a Kundalini yogi and you're not eating anything but berries every day, every single day, berries, and maybe on Sunday for the feast, some leaves. And the temptation comes to you, and in your mind you see this beautiful table spread with all your favorite things to eat. So the yogi has to go through all these different temptations and hold fast, hold firm, be very tolerant. Such a difficult thing to do. But in bhakti, we have some. First of all, we're able to tolerate by the grace of the Lord. Secondly, the senses are engaged, and we can engage our senses in service to Krishna. Prabhupada just explained it. He said, just like the people are living in the palace, just like in London we have Buckingham Palace, where the royal family live. It has 700 rooms. 700 rooms. One of our devotees called Sham, he used to cook for the Queen. He was the cook for the Queen. And he used to cook at Buckingham Palace. And first he started off at the Ritz Hotel, then Buckingham Palace. Then he became a devotee, and then of course he had to give up cooking such items. But now he cooks meals that you can hardly believe are possible. And it's made the Vedanta retreat one of the very popular places to go. So, very nice devotee. What was my point? Anyway, the Buckingham Palace. So the cooks cook, and everything has to be offered first to the, royal family. You can't eat. Everything's offered first. But then when they've eaten, then you can eat. So Prabhupada said, just like the Queen, she's eating first, but then the servants are eating on the same level as the Queen. So if you want to enjoy on the same level as God, you serve God his meals first, then you can eat. This is very nice. See, one time one of our devotees was invited by the palace, Buckingham Palace, to go to sit down and have dinner with the late Queen and her husband, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. And he was saddened to find that in the meal there was fish. So he thought that he'd asked for a vegetarian meal, so then he was just pushing the food around the plate, making it look as if something was happening. And the husband of the Queen said to him, "What is the matter?" And he said, "Well, I'm vegetarian." He said, "Oh, why didn't you say?" So they went, the kitchen brought something. Anyway, afterwards, the head of the kitchen came. He said, "On behalf of the Queen, I'm so sorry. I want to apologize to you. Is there anything we can do to make it up?" He said, "Well, yes. I would like you to come to our mansion in the country and eat with us. Can we make that arrangement?" So 17 people came from Buckingham Palace to Bhaktivedanta Manor. And my wife and I showed them around. And at the end of the day, they said, this place, Bhaktivedanta, is just like Buckingham Palace. You wake up in the morning and you just think of one family. And you have to serve them, clean for them, cook for them. I said, yes, it's the same. In the end, we are all servants. But what I didn't say to them was, we are serving God and you're serving another human being. But they appreciated the service attitude. So Narada Muni, let's get back to the class. Narada, you have to pull me back with string. So Narada Muni, he's giving all these examples. What happens in that same canto? What happens in the same canto? There's Dhruva, and then fourth canto. Main story in the fourth canto. Yeah. I was thinking of King Puranjan, the story of King Puranjan, yeah. So Narada Muni in this case, he is preaching to King Puranjan, who's hopelessly, as we heard the other day, hopelessly besotted with his wife. There's no way out for a king. Kings are very unfortunate. Therefore the sadhus pretty much always have to go to the king, and the sadhus' words have to cut the attachments of the king. This is what the sadhu is good at doing. There's two people who can speak straight to the king. One is the sadhu, and one is the court jester. The court jester can crack jokes about the king. He's the only one that can say these outrageous things to the king, you see. And the sadhu is the only one who can say these things. But the sadhu says it in a very serious way. Or sometimes he says it in a humorous way. So Narada Muni is telling the king a story. But as the story goes along, the king is just beginning to understand that Narada Muni is talking about him. And eventually he's, yeah, you're right, I am attached. So then, is this okay? What happens in the sixth canto? Narada Muni again, he's preaching. We're saying that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the story of Krishna and his incarnations, but it's also the story of Narada Muni. So Narada Muni comes in the sixth canto. What's he doing in the sixth canto? He's speaking to the sons of Daksha. Daksha wants his sons to be like him, a Prajapati. But just like the Kumaras refused their father, they didn't want to become progenitors of mankind. So Daksha's sons also, they meet Narada Muni, and first of all, first group of sons is called the Haryashvas. Second group of sons is called the Savalashvas. And he convinces them to remain brahmachari. Prabhupada said, when someone convinces your son to become a brahmachari, you will hate that person. So Narada Muni was hated by Daksha. He said, similarly, I am hated and cursed by the parents of my American and European boys. I've encouraged them all to become brahmacharis, and therefore the parents have cursed me, and therefore I travel. Prabhupada said, I have to keep traveling because they've cursed me, never to stay in one place. 7th canto. What's the big deal in the 7th canto? Namaste Narada. Yeah. Story of Lord Narasimha. Where does Narada Muni figure in the story of Lord Narasimha? Apart from the two Bhagavatam experts over there. How does Prahlad become a devotee? Is it just magic? What happens? Yes, thank you. He hears the Bhagavatam in the womb. He hears the Bhagavatam in the womb. Because Kayadu is in the ashram and Narada Muni speaks to her. And he speaks the Bhagavatam to the child in the womb. And that's why all our devotee mothers, they also speak the Bhagavatam. They also read to their child from very early on. And it is a fact that the child can hear. And then Narada Muni is also the narrator of the story of Lord Nrsimhadev. The story of Lord Nrsimhadev appears 14 times in Vedic scripture. And in the Bhagavatam it's told by Narada Muni, but it's told many other places. And in the 7th canto, Narada Muni also instructs King Yudhishthira in the duties of the 4 ashrams. Anyway, yesterday we heard how in Balaram Purnima, the movie, Balaram Purnima, the slideshow, we heard how Narada Muni facilitates the descent of Krishna by speaking to Kamsa. Narada Muni always comes at just the right time. Always comes at just the right time. And of course in the 10th canto, what happens? Narada Muni also brings, that was the 10th canto, sorry, but he also, I would like to say that Narada Muni is, he's an interventionist. He intervenes. There you were just expecting to have a nice evening, and Narada Muni comes. Narayan, 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 here he comes. Narada Muni, Maharaj, please sit. Would you like some water? You must be tired after your travels. Let me wash your feet. Okay, what is it that you want to say to me? Let me hear, says the king. I know you're going to give it to me straight. What do you need me to hear? But Narada Muni is an interventionist. He intervenes. He comes in just at the right moment when disaster could have struck. Dhruva Maharaj, he's only 5. It's not long before a snake bites him or he's covered in leeches. Right? You sit in the jungle for just a few minutes, you're going to get those animals. What to speak of a tiger? I was traveling in South India one time and the windows were down. It was midnight, but it was still hot and stuffy. I was with Shivaram Swami and we were driving through a jungle area and I saw a dog, a big dog, crossing the road. And of course, because I'm British, we always have to have an interaction with dogs. Indians can never understand that, but we always... So I was just about to put my hand out of it and just either touch the dog as it went by. And then the dog went... And then the taxi driver went, tiger. So in the dark, I couldn't see that the shadowy figure, it was actually a tiger. So we stopped off at the next village and informed them that there was a tiger on the prowl. And there in the village they had The appropriate response, the non-British response was, because tigers are killers. So Narada Muni arrived just in time. He arrives just in time for all of the events that we told you. The other thing is that Narada Muni, he leaves his path of sadhana in order to preach. He takes on voluntary discomfort for the sake of preaching. He could have carried on walking on that path through the jungle. Okay? He didn't have to stop and preach to Dhruva. He could have carried on walking through that jungle. But when he saw the dead animals, or the half-dead animals, he had to preach. He had to stop to the hunter. You see? Narada Muni begins speaking from the I would say the preaching point of NICE or nice. He addresses the person's needs, their interests, their concerns, and their expectations. He's a nice preacher. He thinks of nice before he opens his mouth. But he always asks according to the person's category. So to a Brahmin, Narada Muni will say, how are you in your attempts to escape the cycle of birth and death? That's how he'll speak to a Brahmin. How are you dealing with samsara? To a king he will say, are your citizens happy? Are your enemies subdued? How is your treasury? Is everything good in your kingdom? Why? Because the king naturally wants to speak about what's most valuable to him. Everybody does. You know? So then he'll come and... But he also speaks very controversially. He's a compassionate Vaishnava, but what's his first instruction to the hunter? Kill them. Hang on a minute. I thought he was a Vaishnava. Isn't he in our Sampradaya? Isn't he at the top of our Sampradaya? And here's a Vaishnava saying, can you just do one thing for me? Kill the animals. Because in this case, killing the animals was superior to half killing them. So when you're preaching to someone, what are they doing? What's the next thing they could be doing? Oh, you're not a vegetarian? Well, have you thought about eating fish? Okay? Becoming a pescatarian. Now, our job as Vaishnavas is to give bhakti, to share bhakti. But the foundation of bhakti, one of them, is ahimsa. So, in order to give less pain to less animals, we may say sometimes, have you tried not eating this, but eating this instead? Giving less pain. Okay. So then where does Narada Muni say, kill babies? I think what you should do, I'm Narada Muni, you're a king, I've come to preach to you. You know what I think you should do? I think you should kill babies. What does he say then?
Why? That's the question for me.
Yeah.
Why he did that?
Why?
He's Vaishnava.
He's Vaishnav, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So why kill babies? Who can answer Prabhuji's question? Yes. Krishna will come sooner. Well, that seems a bit kind of institutional, doesn't it? You know, so that my religion will become the most prominent in the world, I think you should kill a few babies. However, there's always a backstory. And the backstory is that these were the 6, what are they called? What are the names? Yes, there were 6 whose time was up. And the quicker they could be delivered, the better. They'd taken birth specifically to die. So their time in the material world was just short. Yeah. So Narada Muni knew this. But where else does Narada Muni say that Where else does he behave in a non-Vaishnav way? Vaishnavas are never meant to curse anybody, right? We're not meant to curse, are we? We have great power. If a Vaishnav curses someone, that person will suffer. Did you know that? A friend of mine, Guru Das, was in a rickshaw, and in the rickshaw he shared the rickshaw with a yogi. And this is a yogi, he was in India, a proper yogi, just all loincloth and hair and beard and Guruji eyes. Anyway, he was a proper yogi. And the rickshawwala got into a discussion which became a debate, which became an argument, which became a shouting match. And eventually, the yogi just put his finger like this and he chanted a mantra, and the rickshaw driver fell unconscious. Guru Das saw this with his own eyes. So there is something called Brahminical tejas, which we build up by the dint of chanting so many mantras. It's not just that you become more spiritual, you become more powerful. And a devotee develops all kinds of secret powers. We have devotees that could walk towards a person in an airport and they would know the name of that person when they're trying to distribute them a book. And one lady, she was so much in the zone. She walked towards someone one time. She said, "How was the tile conference?" And then the kitchen tile conference. There was nothing about the man that said, "I've just been to a kitchen tile conference." It was just a man in a suit and a briefcase. He just got off the plane. He said, "How was the kitchen tile conference?" "Oh, it was wonderful. Were you there?" She said, Yeah, I heard about it, man. That's really good. But we're giving everybody who went to the kitchen tile conference, we're giving them this book. It's called A Good Luck for Luck in Your Sales. He said, "Yeah, sure, I'll have one of those." And they went to the lady and said, "How did you do that?" She said, "Prabhu, it's just Paramatma." So I heard that story, and I was taking a new bhakta out on book distribution for the first time. And I thought, well, maybe I've got some tejas too, And I said, "Look, this is how it works. I'll try and guess the name of the person." And so I walked towards someone with him watching. And I just said the first thing that came into my mind. I said, "Hey, Steve, how's the band?" He said, "Oh, it's going really good." And then my mind said, "Boy, you're so powerful." So I tried it again, and of course it didn't work. So as soon as you become so-called powerful, you lose everything. But devotees, especially book distributors, they will attest to this. That if you really, really try hard, and you're really chanting well, and you're really in the zone, it's almost mystical, the power that you have over other people's minds. We had another devotee. When I was a brahmachari, I used to travel with him, and he'd heard about this. He'd heard about mind control, that yogis could do mind control. He would just walk up to a person, look straight in their eyes, and he would say, "Read this book. You need this book. Take it. Take it now. Take it from my hands. Put it in your hands. You need this book. You need this book. You really, really need this book. Just put your hand in your pocket. Give me something." And he would distribute books like that. And after the person walked away, they would go, what just happened? Anyway, he eventually became Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. So if you're his disciple, watch out. He'll look at you and go, "Give me." So the power is that you can curse or you can bless. It's your choice. So Narada Muni is a Vaishnava. When does he curse? Tara. Yeah.
He cursed the kids of Krishna, Samba. Narada Muni cast the curse.
No, it's Narada Muni cast the curse.
He was there.
He was there, yes, he was. Yeah, interesting, isn't it, that Narada Muni's intervention caused the whole Yadu dynasty to take birth. And also he was there when they were disappeared. So yes, so Narada Muni curses the two boys who were frolicking naked in the heavenly worlds. But what's the special deal with the curse? What happened? Yeah, which is not bad, is it? Which is not bad. Like the man who came and Lord Chaitanya said, I will, I'll see you in 1,000 lifetimes. You'll get my darshan. And the boy went away and he was ecstatic. What's 1,000 lifetimes to see the Lord? And if someone came to you now and said, you'll see Krishna face to face in 100 lifetimes, well, that might be difficult for some of us. Will I still be having 100 lifetimes of difficulty? Somebody said that to me. I was sitting in a truck, as my history is in a truck, and he turned to me and he said, one day you'll see Krishna face to face, just like I'm speaking to you now. You'll speak with Krishna face to face. And I just went, wow. Just because he'd said the promise, I thought, well, that's worth waiting around for. And that was 50 years ago. So Narada Muni is an unconventional teacher, unconventional preacher. And I would just like to say that we also have to be prepared to be slightly unconventional, interventionist and unconventional, in order to reach people. Okay. So the other thing I gained from this verse, which is not the verse I'd prepared a class on, but next verse, is that immediately after telling him to be a Vaishnava, and after he complies with Narada Muni's request, Narada Muni's got a practical question for him. What's the point of initiating a person into Vaishnava Bhakti if they're going to be poor or if they're not going to be able to eat? That's not the idea. So immediately he says, my dear Vaishnava. So immediately Narada Muni doesn't say, my dear ex-hunter, or my dear hunter, are you following the regulated principles? He said, my dear Vaishnava, because he could see they're brushing away the ants. Do you have some income for your maintenance? So this is interesting, isn't it? That Narada Muni, he cares. And if you care about someone, my godbrother Bhagwat, he had an infected foot, and at Guru Puja, Prabhupada noticed that he had an infected foot. So Prabhupada, in the middle of Guru Puja, while the Shri Guru Charana Padma flowers, singing, dancing, mridangas, cartels, he motioned about me, he said, come. He said, what happened to your foot? Then Prabhupada said, you go and get this type of medicine, you go and get this bandage, make this arrangement, and be careful, put your foot up. So Prabhupada is having this conversation during Guru Puja. So Prabhupada is not enjoying Guru Puja, right? If one of his disciples has a problem with his foot, Prabhupada's not enjoying it. And indeed, Prabhupada never enjoyed Guru Puja. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to be Prabhupada? Sat there with garlands and flowers. No, this is something Prabhupada did for us so that we would serve him. But he wanted us to serve him because it was good for us, not because he cared that much about flower garlands. Where's my flower garland? It wasn't like that. So immediately he sees a devotee in distress, in some pain. He's hobbling to offer his flowers. Prabhupada asks him. So, bandage, medicine. Okay, so you have to be, as a preacher, we're also interested in giving bhakti. But we're also interested in that the person has some means of income at the same time. So one time we had a man who was a cow farmer. And of course, with everything that implies, and we preached to him that you should become a vegetarian and you should get rid of the cows and you should do all the rest of it. And the man had no income. We'd failed to make proper arrangements that after this huge change in his life, he would have no income because that's all he knew how to do. So I'm just saying, and there was great problems, and he gave up bhakti because it caused too much problem between him and his wife. So as a preacher, you have to say, I want you to take up bhakti, but will you have enough income? Okay. And sometimes people come to us and they say, I want to be initiated, but I work in a meat factory. And we say, I'm sorry, that's incompatible. But have you tried these other occupations that you may do? And if they're able to make that change, then we can initiate them. But the point here is, there's a very practical, concomitant reaction to taking up bhakti, that something in your life will change. And if you know what there is in your life that will change, then you have to make adequate arrangements. Okay, I want to take up bhakti, but I've got all these friends and we go out drinking and partying and clubbing. Okay? That's very nice, but you should take up bhakti and you should get initiated. This is very well. But then we get a phone call from them. They say, I've got no friends, no social life. I've got nobody in my life. I'm so lonely. There's only me in this town. What can I do? You have to make sure that a person is able to break free from the society in which they are, gently. First of all, make new friends. Then you can make one new friend and choose the least popular friend in your circle and drop them off your database. Or don't, just make new friends and see how you get on with them. But for everyone there's a concomitant thing. Yes, I want you to come and serve the deities. Okay, I want you to live in the temple, serve the deities. Well as they're going to be. But let's see if you've got enough for your maintenance. Sometimes devotees come and they've got a student debt. And they have to pay off the student debt. You have to pay it off. Or a lot of different things. So here, the hunter had given up the only thing he knew how to do. And he's sitting with Tulsi Devi, chanting all day. So Narada Muni asks him the obvious question, are you eating enough? Are you eating enough? Even Prabhupada, in his last days, he asked the temple president of the Vrindavan temple, he couldn't eat himself. And Prabhupada was asking, are the devotees eating enough? This is the thing. So this compassion to bring a person to bhakti should also be matched by a compassion for their physical and social situations. Otherwise, if you don't think of it, then their enthusiasm, their initial enthusiasm to take up bhakti might enable them to live a completely radically different lifestyle for 6 months. But after that, the call of the wild is their old friends ring them up, or their old girlfriend rings them up, or whatever. So I'm just saying compassion works in 2 ways. And we should not think that, this is just material compassionate. No, that is required. There is always a social and a material and a financial foundation for the practice of bhakti. Change my mind. Prema, change my mind. Tara, change my mind.
There's no good argument against it, sorry.
You see, Prabhupada not only introduced bhakti, but he started ashrams where people could live. And the whole idea was that, yes, it's easier to practice bhakti if you live in a place where your needs are met. So you have new friends because you're living with them. You have food because, I was a meat eater. I ate meat. I came to the temple and I never ever thought about meat ever again because the The prasadam was so good. Never crossed my mind that I've lost something by taking to Krishna consciousness. In the food department. You see, otherwise I would have thought. Now, the story I told the other day that I was looking in a shop window and I saw myself and they'd taken everything and that had to be dealt with. But the ashrams, how were the ashrams meant to be funded? Well, do you know what Prabhupada said? He said, I saw the Ramakrishna mission and I saw that they were selling incense and I thought that we could do the same thing. They were supporting their ashrams by the sale of incense and I thought we could do the same thing. And that was the beginning of something we called spiritual sky incense. But spiritual sky incense was then run by householders, and then it became a private business. Then at some stage, the book distribution took off, and then everybody all over the world said, well, book distribution is our source of income. And we made it a source of income until we had insufficient income. And then we asked people to sell a lot of other things. I don't know whether they went through that in Switzerland. Did you go through that in Switzerland? So Sankirtan for me became selling flowers. I sold flowers, or I sold carved candles, or I sold prints, or I sold oil paintings. What else did we sell? Oh, we sold records, vinyl albums. We sold all kinds of things. So it became more about funding the ashram than book distribution. And in sometime in the early 80s, we developed something called book points. But we had a variety of that. We'd raise the funds, and we had potential book points. Have you heard of that? Potential book points. That was the books that you would distribute if you had them. But you didn't quite have enough money to print the books. So you raised the funds, and that was potential book points. Anyway, there must be a stream of income for householders, and there must be a stream of income for brahmacharis, a stream of income. And of course, that's the duty of the temple president to make sure that goes on, otherwise things can't be supported. So Narada Muni is asking this very important question. Do you have enough for your maintenance? Any points? Any questions?
I have a question because my English, Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Because my English is not so good. I understand there's now something that looks more like we are selling the more flowers and so many things.
Yeah, yeah.
And is it good or is it bad actually? Because I didn't get it far.
Yeah. Well, selling anything is good if you're doing it for Krishna.
Okay, so it's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, any business is good if you're doing it for Krishna. That's a simple answer. My description was how book distribution went from distributing books to something else in the name of Sankirtan. Yeah. And we got rich. And then we had leadership problems. So, yeah. Is that the end? Yes, you have a question. Hare Krishna.
So much for your lecture. Can you elaborate more on the different fields of devotee care, so that we might care better for devotees in different fields?
Well, it's not. Yeah. So her question is, can we elaborate more on devotee care? Well, it's not my speciality. There's now a whole GBC ministry set up to cope with this big question. And it's the Narada Muni question, actually. Do you have enough for your maintenance? This is what the GBC is asking devotees all over the world. And maintenance comes in different forms as financial, social, emotional, marital, child, education. All of these are areas where care is important. And the GBC motto is, of course, more devotees, happy devotees. And the reason why this is a balancing statement is that we cannot grow as a movement unless we have more devotees. So we want more devotees. That's how a movement grows. That's the very definition of a movement. If you don't have more devotees, you're not moving. So you're not a Hare Krishna movement, you're a Hare Krishna not moving. Not non-movement. But in order to be happy with more devotees, you have to have happy devotees. Happy means, I'm answering Narada Muni's question here. Yes, I have enough of my maintenance. So that covers all areas. It covers, do you have enough, after you come to the Hare Krishna movement, do you have enough friends? Do you have enough friends? Okay. Do you have good friends? Do you have enough food? Do you have enough sleep? No. That's a funny one, isn't it? But in later life, we will see the value of sleep. I think in my first few years as a devotee, my God, I must have been on about 5 hours a night, something like that. For year after year after year after year, 5 hours a night. We would get up at 3 in the morning, step outside the truck and jump into a river because we thought that that's what Prabhupada wanted. Or jump into the sea, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I was at the temple for a short while after about 5 years or something. And he would become a sannyasi, but Dhanavir, now Dhanavir Swami, he was the head of the Bhaktas. And so I was head of the Sankirtan party, and our new program was to distribute books in London, but in different areas of London that never got book distribution. It was very common for the distributors to go to Houses of Parliament or the big tourist areas in London, but not in the London suburbs. So in the middle of London, you meet Japanese people, you meet Chinese people, you meet people from all over the world, Arabics. But you don't meet Londoners. So we thought preaching to Londoners, you have to go to London outside the tourist areas. So we'd get up at 2:30 in the morning and have the daily greeting, Guru Puja and everything, singing in the truck on the way to this area of London. And then Dhanavir said, well, why don't you join me on my program? I'm getting up at midnight, I'm chanting all my 16 rounds and reading for an hour before Mangalarti. So I said, okay, I'll join you. So that was when I started getting up at midnight and doing that program. I lasted a week. It was a good week. Lasted a week. So anyway, the point is are you getting enough sleep? That's the question. And sometimes, so the legends are rife, of course, in ISKCON at the moment. How we looked after our children, or really failed to look after our children, and why so many children did not take up Krishna Bhakti, So for my 2 daughters and my son to take up Krishna Bhakti, my wife had to become a school teacher for them for 25 years, just so that we were satisfied that they would get a good education. We had to do it ourselves. So you have to look after the next generation. But everybody needs to be cared for and to feel that they're cared for. That means that they have to have spiritual education. Are we providing you with an education? Spiritual, pastoral care, counseling, guidance, and different areas of life. Do you have enough money for soap? Do you have enough money for razor blades? Do you have enough money for living? Yeah.
How can we better prepare could we still have ashram devotees? How can we better prepare them in transitioning into, the next phase of their life, grihastha life or whatever, moving away from the ashram and, having to face.
Yeah, it's good. Well, I guess you can begin by telling them that there is another phase of life. You know, Prabhupada Prabhupada came to the manor, Bhaktivedanta Manor. He stayed for 6 weeks, 1973. And he wrote to Mukunda after his visit. The temple was filled with people, because in those days, joining the Hare Krishna movement meant moving into the building. And it also meant for a young man dressing in saffron. You shaved your head, you dressed in saffron. There was no white. There was no white. If you got married, you dressed in yellow. You know, now we have harinams that look like advertisements for bed sheets. You know, it's just like they're all white. People look at the harinam party in London and say, are they Arabs or are they? There's no saffron anymore. At some point in our movement, we thought putting people in saffron temporarily was not a good idea. Anyway, the point is that Prabhupada wrote to Mukunda, the temple president. He said, after seeing the whole room filled with saffron Brahmana, he said, you have to go to the universities and you have to find leaders. You have to find leaders, because how long will they be? How long will these people live with you? Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, jumping, jumping, jumping. This was Prabhupada's letter. He said, how long will they stay? Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, jumping, jumping, jumping. So although you could say, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, how could you speak like that about people who want to become your disciples? But Prabhupada saw the future. He saw the future. Find some leaders. These people are not going to stay. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, jumping, jumping, jumping. So I had the same question as you, not surprisingly. I went to South India and I visited 2 gurukulas, traditional gurukulas. And I asked the young boys, what are you learning in gurukula? They're about between 11 and 15. And they said, well, in the morning we learn the Adhyaya, the Veda. We learn Upanishads, the Vedas, of the particular sampradaya, particular gotra. Then in the afternoon, we learn a trade. In the afternoon, I'm becoming an architect, and my friend is studying accountancy, so that they would have something to do when they left the ashram. And clue for us, leaving the ashram doesn't mean failure. It means that you're following the Vedic path. Vedic path. We did it for one brahmachari. We had a ceremony. It's called Samavartana. And he went from saffron into white. There's a ceremony for that. And now he became a snataka. Snataka is not a brahmachari or a grihasta. And it's not meant to last forever. The idea is that you're meant to go home and your parents help you to arrange a marriage, etc. like that. So the point here is that it's a stage. If it's not a stage, then it's a very serious commitment. So Prabhupada obviously he wanted a preaching movement to be led by brahmacharis and sannyasis. But brahmachari should understand that brahmachari is not sannyas. It's not junior sannyas. It's not lookalike sannyas. It's not wannabe sannyas. It's a completely different species of life. It's like saying a panda bear is the same thing as a grizzly bear. It's not. Panda bears are cuddly, grizzly bears aren't. Brahmacharis are cuddly, sannyasis aren't. Okay? They're different. They're completely different species. The only clue is the word bear. So the only similarity is the saffron, but they're different species of life. So sometimes when brahmacharis even think of transitioning to grihastha life, they get it's a fall down. I'm falling down from renounced life. Sometimes brahmacharis tell me, or the ones who are wearing white, they're becoming saffron, and they say, I'm going into renounced life. And I look at them very seriously and I say, no, you're not. It's not renounced life. Renounced life means I've given this up completely. I've given this up completely. Do you know what the punishment was for a sannyasi who broke his vows in Vedic times? He was known as Vantasi, or a dog who eats vomit. A dog vomits and he eats his own vomit. So for a sannyasi to go back to a woman, the king would find that person. And he had a red-hot iron in the shape of a dog's foot, and that would be burned on the sannyasi's forehead. So we are seriously considering reintroducing this to ISKCON. Then we'll see how many people want to take sannyas. Eh? Then we'll see what Yukta Vairagya will do. So anyway, joking aside, the point is that we have to understand that statistically now we have 60, 70, how long has it been? 60, 70 years ISKCON? 60 at least, huh? Have we reached our 70th? Not yet. Since 1966, ISKCON was established. We've just passed the 60th, yeah. Yeah. So in 60 years we've learned something. That people do transit. And that people do follow Krishna's description of how life develops. They do follow that. So let there be no surprises. So if something is predictable, then you have to prepare a person for the inevitable or the predictable. And that's the definition of intelligent preaching. Intelligent preaching. I was discussing this with Mahatma Das. We were having a discussion about the problems that devotees inevitably get into, and the devotees, even the devotees who are preachers and initiators even, that everybody goes through the same cycle. Everybody therefore has to be aware that these problems will come. Everybody has to be. So, although sometimes we read the scriptures and we imagine that we are part of something which is, nothing ever goes wrong, but if you look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as being a book about Krishna and his incarnations, as well as being a book about Narada Muni, it's all about the times when devotional life goes belly up. It's all about a time when people fail. Think of famous failures in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Who do you think of, Tara?
I'm just reading Bharat Maharaj.
Oh, Bharat Maharaj, what a failure. Took sannyas, fell in love with the deer. That's a new one for ISKCON, isn't it? Hey, that would be a new one for us. GBC having a serious meeting now, but a sannyasi who's fallen in love with a deer. Immediately the Ritviks start writing, yeah, we knew this would happen. Pictures of AI pictures, AI-generated pictures on the internet, sannyasi with deer. Yeah, he blew it. But it's there to educate us. And therefore it becomes predictable. It's in the paper. Who else?
Вечерам переведите, пожалуйста. Вы говорили про саньяси, что саньяси начали проповедовать, и это новый опыт. Я хотела...
Сейчас другим вопросом, такой простой, сейчас спрашивают, какие примеры Шримад-Бхагаватам вы знаете, кто пали.
Oh, she has another question.
She has a question.
We can do it one second. So who else? Sabari Muni. Yes. Greatly renounced person. So renounced that he was sitting underwater, meditating. That's, something that you don't have to do in ISKCON. Meditating underwater. Saw 2 fish copulating. And immediately his mind became filled. But of course, the backstory to that is that he offended Garuda. Don't offend Garuda if you don't want your meditation to break. Who else? Vishwamitra, yes. How did he become deviated? Oh, Menaka. Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's a clever one, yeah. So there's many examples. Many examples. Think of another one. Were you just on the verge of saying another one? Yeah. Lord Brahma. Then Lord Shiva. Yeah. Hiranyakashipu. Indra. Indra's so many. Yeah. So this whole element, if something is predictable, then take precautions. If you do not know what is predictable, you're a fool. What is the definition of a fool? Prabhupada says, a man is sitting on the branch of a tree, facing the trunk of the tree, and he's got a saw in his hand, and he's sawing the branch. And an intelligent man comes. He says, hey, if you carry on sawing, the branch will break, and you will fall. And the foolish man says, who are you? Are you an astrologer? You know what? You can predict the future? Are you that intelligent? Get away with you. And the intelligent man carries on walking, and then he hears, and then the man, he's flat on his back, and the intelligent man comes and he says, how are you? Are you okay? He looks up at him and he says, how did you know I was going to fall? How did you know I was going to fall? We have to stop being surprised when people fall. We have to expect it as predictable. Therefore, prevention is better than cure. You don't be surprised, but at the same time, make a preventative. So what is the preventative? Preventative is don't bring people into contact with situations or persons that will threaten their spiritual status. Don't do it. We should be very alert to that. You know, just like many situations we've seen. Anyway, that wasn't your question. We drifted away. So the point is to have a form of education which I think needs to be, it's career development. Career development. And we have to see, what are people going to do after they've been in the Hare Krishna movement for 10 years, 20 years? They need to be able to see a future for themselves. If they can't see a future, they will go to somewhere where they can find one. We have two devotees, or two people, they're cousins, in America. And one boy, he was a Mormon, and his cousin is the son of a devotee family. So these people became devotees, the other ones became Mormons. So the two boys. One boy went for Sankirtan for 2 years, 3 years. The other boy went for missionary work for the Mormons for 2 years, 3 years. They both came home. When the Mormon boy came home, he had a career, house, wife, everything was waiting for him. He was happy. When the Sankirtan devotee came back, after 2-3 years of doing Sankirtan, there was nothing. So the Mormon parents said to the devotee parents, he said, we love you guys. We love your movement. You believe the same things as us. One thing we just can't understand, why don't you look after your people? We look after our kids. Why don't you look after your kids? We have to make arrangements for their future. And one thing that has happened, I feel, is because the culture is that we make devotees and we lose them. And we've become acceptable. That's become acceptable to us. That we know, statistically, we make some lose them. Why we don't take more effort in looking at why we lose them, and then stop losing them. How about that for a change? Now, it may take more work, it may take more effort, but it might just take more talking and more realistic approach. Anyway, what do I know? Hare Krishna. I know that I'm hungry. I know that that nature is calling me, Mother Nature is calling me through the stomach. Come, come. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Hare Krishna. Well, it's half class, half GBC petition.
This should needs to be given proper attention.
I don't have all the solutions, but neither do I have all the funding. But at least if you can talk about these things and identify that there is a need, then you factor that need into further discussions.